Okay. You gotta herd the cats here.
Thank you. There's supposed to be some music on that.
I want to watch this. I've never seen this.
Hello? Is that correct?
Did we do it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Can you hear me?
Just change it.
I don't know.
Yeah, we good to go? Can everyone hear me? Sounds good. Well, thank you all. Good afternoon. And thanks for the eye candy prior to today's panel. And you know
You're welcome.
that the importance of creative and mobile has finally been realized when two things happen. One, it becomes a major category in Cannes, which it was earlier this year. And second, Perrin includes it as a major topic at the Mobile Media Summit. So we're glad that he's raising the topic around creative and how that's mixing with media. So why it's been, very important and becoming more important for clients, as we've heard in all the earlier panels, is obviously brands are investing more and more dollars in reaching their consumers and building relationships through their most personal devices, right?
Okay, wait. Hang on, excuse me. Keith, I'm gonna call you out right now, if you don't mind, okay? For those of you guys who don't know, we have someone very special in the house. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
The panel. We have Keith Reinhardt, the Chairman Emeritus of DDB Advertising. And Keith, I remember he was my boss many, many moons ago and taught me many things. But I want to ask you, right, because you're famous creative. You've seen the evolution of Cannes from being a creative hotspot to now the media people are taking over. Before we get to the panelists, no offense here, I got to ask them, like, what do you think is happening between creative and media?
No, I'm here to listen and learn, but I'm happy to see this agenda item on the program, because as we get all these new amazing tools and ways to reach and engage consumers, content and ideas are still the most important. And talent is more important than technology. And so I believe that I probably would say creative still is king. It must be king. I've suggested we stop talking about the digital age. In the last century, we didn't talk about the analog age. And when we talked about the television age, we talked about ideas and content and programming. And that's what we should be talking about now. So I hope creativity still is king. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thanks, Perrin. So to dig in, or instead of baseline really for the conversation, what I'd love is for the panelists to introduce yourselves as well as just kind of talk about your involvement around mobile, specifically the creative piece within your agency, from development through production, and any examples that you might have for campaigns that you've run. First, Kip.
So I'm at Kip Voytek, Director of Digital Innovation at MDC Partners. We're actually a network of about 53, 55 marketing services companies, so not a single agency, and there's a mix of the full range of services. But among our general and more integrated agencies, to your first question, mobile is something that we're all hearing requests for, we're all pushing ideas for. We're struggling in the midst of what to do with tablet, because it seems like we sort of have three things. There's desktop, there's mobile, and then there's these interesting behaviors with the tablet. And I think some of the most interesting stuff that you'll see from us are less campaigns and more things that are like applications. So we have a Carl's Jr. application that came out of 72 and Sunny, which attempts to reach people while they're moving around at lunchtime and encourage them to come to Carl's Jr. for lunch because it has a smaller footprint, and they've attached a bunch of games and very creative ideas to it. And then we have a lot of the Domino's work around making the ability to order the pizza and engage with the brand on every device all the way out to the phone. But both of those are applications. I think that's one of the interesting pieces about this conversation, because to your point around creativity and ideas, they may still drive what you do, but the nature of the idea has become distinctly different from what the ideas were 10 years ago.
Ellen?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ellen Comley, Managing Director at MPG, and I'm probably the only person in this entire building who doesn't have the word digital or mobile somewhere in their title. I actually am and the jack of all trades side of the house. I'm responsible for managing our portfolio of clients and bringing together all the channels. So my heart and soul, where my love is how do you integrate all channels together to make sense as a branding solution for clients. That said, mobile is very much a hot spot in our agency right now. Mobext, our digital agency, is tearing their hair out. They can't keep up with how much work is coming through. I think what's interesting to me, and I'd be interested to talk to Keith afterwards about this, is that this channel is unlike any other, even more so than digital, in that the way we think of it is it's functionality. It's functionality. It's an individual's ability to do things. That's not a billboard. That's not TV. That's not radio. It's very different. So our agency is working very hard to help educate clients on what kind of role that's going to play in connecting with brands. And I think the prior panel talked very eloquently about how you need to engage with people and give them what they want when they want. I thought that was all very relevant. We're doing some very cool stuff. We work with Dannon, for example, and how would you want to engage with yogurt? Yeah, think about it. So that's the challenge to us as ideators, and the team came up with sending people on a virtual tour to Paris when they felt like taking a break and eating their yogurt, and it's actually been very successful. So it's a lot of very cool stuff going on.
Real quick, though, didn't one of your agencies just win another award?
Yeah.
What was that?
That would be Mobile Agency of the Year. Thank you very much, Mobext. Hey. Thank you for letting me give that plug.
And Ben?
I'm actually looking forward to the panel after this, which is how do you want to engage with yogurt? So it's coming up right after this? Okay.
It's about an hour and a half long. You've got to put aside time.
That's how I'd like to engage with it, for 1.5 hours. I'm Ben Winkler. I run digital for OMD, which is the single largest media agency in the US. I think what's been most interesting about what we're doing with mobile, what we're trying to do with mobile, is trying to figure out where it goes over the years. We were the first mobile-rich media ad came out of OMD back in '09. June. It was a watershed moment. And at the time, it was coming out of our group called Ignition Factory, which is our creative media group that sort of overlaps a bit with our creative friends like Steve over here. Great for breakthrough type ideas. At first, mobile was good for breakthrough and not good for much else. But then our clients started saying, well, you know, this mobile thing, it sounds very digital. Let's make sure that mobile lives in digital as well. So we trained our whole digital team, 200-odd people. And so mobile started to live there as well. And then our clients said, well, yeah, but we also want like real mobile strategy and soup to nuts, app development and global mobile strategy. So we created an agency within an agency called Airwave, which does that full soup to nuts services. And then finally, our clients started saying, well, but shouldn't mobile be everywhere? So we trained, yeah, which is what clients always say, right? Shouldn't digital be everywhere? Shouldn't strategy be everywhere? So what we did is we trained every single employee of OMD, that includes finance and I don't think custodial, but the accounting. Yeah, maybe we should have. They're very good with mobile. With our client Apple and train them on mobile, whether it was apps, ads, operating systems, so that our entire strategy and planning team would see mobile as just another channel throughout. So we'd have those sharp edges of the specialty groups plus kind of that broad, kind of nebulous understanding of mobile. And hopefully with everybody touching and everybody getting it in some way, we can make it a little bit more legitimate than it was just 3 years ago. Oh, a cool example of something, right? I guess what I like best about what we do in mobile on the creative side is taking it beyond even that level of requirement for good online ads. And there actually is sort of a baseline for that. It's got to be entertaining or educational or bring you utility. What I like about what we've done with mobile is we add that real world connection piece. I mean, that's what I hate about working in digital is that you can't touch it, right? You can't show it to you. There's no tear sheets. So for example, for Showtime, for the TV show, the program about the San Francisco Giants last year, we had a living billboard down in Soho. You took your phone, you checked in on Foursquare, and a baseball popped out. I mean, a real, actual, honest-to-goodness MLB baseball. And every 50th one was signed by Willie Mays. So this is something that, oh wow, this isn't just a bunch of pixels. This is a real thing I could throw through a window. I can toss with my kid. And that's what I like the best about the mobile and what we're doing at OMD.
And our token chief creative officer, Steve.
I'm the only actual guy who's been to art school. Okay, I got a battle on my hands today. Also, thank you, Perrin, for zooming me back to feeling like I was at DDB again. Steve, we're very interested to hear your ideas, but what does Keith think? So a couple of examples that I just want to hit on because I think in contrast to the two examples, to me what's interesting about mobile. We just completed a piece for Spring Hill Suites, for Marriott Spring Hill Suites, and a nice little iAd experience. The fundamental thing about it, they're trying to sort of reach that target aspirational, I like design kind of person. So the iAd actually gave consumers the opportunity to vote on the art that would be hung on the walls within the Spring Hill Suites. So that seems pretty interesting to me, like that's a nice way of interacting, and it's been phenomenally successful. What I think is a sort of shortfall of it is it's a great piece for mobile, but you know, we could have done it as a website and we could have done it as a Facebook page as well. So there's nothing unique to mobile about that concept, which sort of leads me to another thought. For the Droid brand, for Verizon, we've executed a number of treasure hunts over time. What we try to do is give an opportunity for consumers to get their hands on a device before it's actually available in stores. And going back, I think about 8 months ago, we executed a treasure hunt that was in augmented reality. So we invited the consumers to download a little app, they fire it up, and placed within a mile radius of their location is a virtual object, and by actually sort of running through the streets and intercepting and grabbing that virtual object that's actually tied to a GPS location, they're entered into a sweepstakes to win the device. It was pretty successful. It had no promotion except for earned media, some blog coverage, and we got 250,000 games played on this platform over a holiday weekend. So that's pretty good activity for it. What I think is really interesting is, and I think this is to your point as well, I can't separate that idea from the medium that exists in. I don't feel like I could have done that in Facebook. I don't feel like I could have done that as a website. And to me, the sort of one of the big challenges about mobile and getting creatives excited about mobile is that we tend to forget the word mobile. And we're very much focusing on, let's take the banner ads and stuff that we're doing on a website and make them into 2K little things that sit at the bottom of the page. And that's not terrifically exciting for creatives. What I think is quite exciting is to say to people, let's throw out the rules and let's come up with an idea where the medium is actually essential to the message and essential to the experience. So that's what I'm hoping to hear more about today.
Right. So if you think about mobile and creative, what excites you most, and what have been kind of the challenges to date or challenges that you see in terms of moving this forward? Anyone? Ben?
What excites me most? Well, what excites me is that I feel like the creative is now finally getting on board. Boom. The process that we're seeing, it starts out with, at least I see this over and over, step one, mobile idea comes from the media group. And this happens because the media guys are eyeballs deep in research. They see that their campaign is not going to be successful if they don't fill in those gaps with mobile, especially for many of our younger target, right? But there typically isn't a mobile production budget set up, so I'm getting a little nitty-gritty here, but this is real life. So media will call the publishers, we'll send them some assets we have lying around, publishers will put it together, mobile happens, all right? Then creative notices that something kind of cool is happening on the periphery. They lobby their client for a couple of bucks, and then, to Steve's point, the next campaign not only has an idea with some cool things going on, but they also resize things into 300 by 50s. Not award-winning, but it's something. Third stage is when things really get cool, and that's the can stage, right? Because creatives are motivated by awards. Typically, right? Here we go. Yes.
Guilty as charged.
Yes, right, guilty as charged. They're motivated by awards, and now there's lots and lots of awards available and not a lot of entries, right? So finally, the idea begins in mobile, and now it's extended beyond that. But it only really works, I think to Steve's point, if the medium is there as well. So it really, really takes off when it's co-led in that third stage, and we've seen this at OMD. With creative and media, there's budgets assigned from a media side, there's budgets assigned from a creative side, and suddenly everyone's incented to actually do a great job. You submit the award, or the entry, you win, and everybody wins. That plus some better tools from Adobe, and I think that things are going to start to get interesting in the next year.
I think the piece that I would jump in with is kind of interesting because I'm having a few disconnects just around mobile and the notion of creative. So, for example, I was in ECD at RGA for several years before I came to MDC, and I didn't go to art school. I actually majored in history, and this sort of comes back to that initial piece of what is creative today, because I think there is still this approach in mobile to assume that that's a place where advertising solutions exist, and start with the display place, and start with the visual piece, and start with it as a messaging one. Whereas in the examples that I was giving, if you don't necessarily think about advertising, but you think about brand building and brand enhancing, then that opens things up to be a, you can come up with all sorts of different things. It's not just a message, it's potentially an app, it's potentially an activity, it's potentially a game. And those kind of ideas can come from all sorts of different disciplines. It could be the media person, it could be the strategy person who's figured out some other hook into it. It could be a traditional creative out of the art and copy background, or it could be the kind of creative directors that I'm seeing today that are coming out of a programming background, but they've done a lot of installations and they know how to not do ugly things. And I think the piece that's interesting there is, we still need to get messages out through mobile, but we now have a chance, and the exciting piece is we now have a chance as a brand to be genuinely useful, because most of the time when you're picking this up, you're in a bit of a crunch. You have something you need to do, and now a brand can step into something, assuming they can do it authentically, into being kind of useful, finding you a discount, finding you a product, helping you better understand the situation that you're in, leveraging some of the information to do something a little bit faster for you. And then the piece I would jump in on the challenge, this feels very much to me like 2003. That was the year before the internet actually took more eyeball time than TV did. And we were all, as designers, struggling with, okay, does everyone have the same bandwidth? Does everyone have the same device? Can we count on everyone having some level of literacy? And we're just now hitting the point where we can count on most people having a smartphone, most people who, AT&T's not a sponsor, right? Most people who don't have AT&T being able to do something reasonably fast in New York City. But we are in that place of just figuring out how to bring the design, because the technology and the penetration is catching up to really let some of these new ideas come up and move past the 2K piece and move into things that actually have some interactivity and the functionality you were talking about.
Well, I'd jump in and say, for those of you who've been around the block a few times like I have, when I started in this is why I'm encouraged, and why I think mobile is actually an interesting flashpoint for media and creative. When I started in this business, I didn't see a creative person. I was a media person, always have been. I didn't see a creative person, I don't think, for 6 years. First 6 years of my bit, they kept us down in the basement with the accounting machines and the red stapler. I want my stapler. Yeah, you never saw those guys because they were gods, right? And you were just number crunchers. And so we've come a long way. The one thing I want to say about how we play together, we've come a long way. And any good media person worth their salt knows how to work with a creative person who comes downstairs, because we're usually downstairs and they're up high. And they'll come downstairs and say, hey, you guys, I have this idea. Can you make this work? And we'll come back and say, it's really funny, Condé Nast was just in here, and they have that thing, and that might work with this thing. And that's been going on for a really long time, and I think mobile is just the most pure expression of how much we need each other, and the good old saying that creativity is not just the realm of the creatives. That's what media people do, and I think why young people are coming to our business now and why it's an exciting place to be is like, it's wide open territory. You guys know it, you're living it every single day, and if you can think it, pretty soon, we can build it. So I think that what's going on right now in terms of is one king over the other. I refuse to make a choice. I think we're bonded together, and we shall never be asunder. I said asunder. Huge word, right?
That's great.
Take it.
10
Go
points.
from there.
2 points.
Wedding vows.
Yeah.
Steve, from a creative perspective, kind of what's most interesting for you?
I mean, in terms of examples that I see, I have to say that I don't feel like I'm the most well-educated person. I think, though, that in some ways that's indicative of the state that we're in, that there are many other things that I'm supposed to worry about, and mobile comes at the end of the discussion. And I think you're right, like it's people who are interested in exploring that space. But right now, much the same way as it's sort of a knock-on effect. It was years and years ago, the website was the last thing we worried about, and then it was the banner ads were the last thing we worried about, and now it's sort of mobile is the last thing we worry about, and quite frequently, I see it happening in my agency. We design the website, and then we're like, oh, how are we going to do this in mobile? And it's sort of tagged on at the end, and inevitably, as the audience moves, we will have to move along with them and put that at the front. I think for creatives, it's you touched on bandwidth. I think that's one of the struggles. Yeah, creatives are interested in awards, but I think creatives are very interested in making people feel stuff and transforming emotions. And there was this sort of fabulous moment of bandwidth, right? Like we all struggled with 12K banners for 5 years and squeezing these messages into tiny spaces, and then suddenly the bandwidth opened up and we could all do these video websites that were full screen, and it was all exciting and everybody was excited about that. And then mobile comes along and you're back to 140 characters to tell your brand story, and I think it's quite challenging to get people excited and interested in that. So to me, I think the biggest opportunity that I would be excited about is if media folks can come and say, this is a way that a story can be told and that some emotion can be injected into the experience, because at the end of the day, a little 2K thing, you're probably not going to achieve much with that.
I think there's an interesting dynamic there with the idea of how does the campaign idea work in certain places. Like one of the things, one of the questions that I think we should be starting to do as marketers in the mobile space is start from what does the customer need in that place? Because typically, again, if you're standing on a street corner trying to figure something out, if you're taking a picture of something and price checking on Amazon, hoping they don't throw you out of the store, you actually have a particular goal. So the question of what the need is. So at Crispin Porter and a few other agencies, one of the things that's started to go into the creative briefs is what is the unmet user need? Or what are the unmet user needs that we're trying to hit? So there's still a sensitivity to the brand story, and there's still a sensitivity to emotion and these other places, but the context of mobile is usually so rushed, unless they're just using this, sitting on the couch, is so rushed or so task-driven or has so much purpose behind it that getting to pain points and user needs as an originator of ideas, and that's where these two pieces that I described at the beginning come out of. And I think that's the place, coming back to that idea of like the notion of creative has changed. I wouldn't have said there's a king in that because I don't know where the creative person on a particular thing is now. Is it in your creative technology group? Is it your planner? Is it your social media person? Is it the client who has a good idea? But there is something with mobile that really reinforces this urgency of what does the customer need at this point and how can the brand fit that versus what do we want the customer to hear and how can we squeeze that story into this particular piece. I mean, I think they're not exclusive of each other, but I think that's the thing that mobile really poses the challenge of, because we've never had this kind of urgency. I've designed for PCs, I've designed for tablets, designed on the web, but there's never been the unforgiving, like, I need this thing now and I've got no patience that I've experienced in the last 10 years until I got to this.
I think you raise an excellent point as well, which is that I was kind of doing a little ad hoc research on the way in this morning and looking at what people were doing on their phones. And maybe it was because I was on the subway and there was no signal.
So that's stalking and peeping. Is
that's
that what you're
actually illegal, but I am that guy. Just this morning, they're playing games. And I do wonder if that's actually one of the most important territories that we're not really paying attention to. From a storytelling point of view, there's no more powerful story than one where you are the hero of that story. And so there has to be great opportunities to tell brand stories through games. It seems like gaming is a phenomenally large and exploding activity on mobile devices. I'm not sure if we're as involved in it as we should be. And what I see the gaming companies doing with the tricks that they are playing with display advertising within games in order to co-promote other games, and the in-app purchasing and the alerting me that I can do stuff to get back in. They seem to be tweaking and exploring that science way ahead of anything that I feel like we're doing inside the ad industry. So I don't know, like I was thinking it turns out there's two of us with a creative background here, but if I was going to be the odd one out, I'd make an alliance and say, hey, guys, why don't we team up and fight the games guys? Because I think maybe they're going to eat our lunch. Is there anyone here from a games company today? Any hands raised? No? All right, they don't know we're here.
I did
Let's
game
get 'em.
design in the late 90s before coming in, so I still follow it and play some of it. I mean, it's an interesting, and I think it's a dangerous space for us, actually, because I think there is this, there are two ways where it gets kind of messy. One is this whole thing of turning advertisements into an incentive to pay $1 to get the ads turned off. And I think we're seeing less of that now, but there were a lot of games that you would download. It's like, and they would say explicitly, tired of seeing these ads, pay us $1, we'll unlock the game, and you don't have to see anymore. And I don't know what advertiser would want to be in the middle of that space. I mean, that was just like, it was kind of crazy. And then there's an interesting company, Keep, K-I-I-P, that we've worked with a couple times, that they actually are sponsoring and putting ads in when someone reaches a point in the game that is a natural endpoint. You level up into something, or you clear a whole wave of Angry Birds levels, and suddenly they give you a particular offer, and that seems to be doing fairly well, and it's very non-intrusive. And then I think, I can't remember the name of the movie. It was either a Pixar or Disney movie. Young girl loses her mother, and it's a single word. It's an anime, what was it? Yeah, Brave. And they did a version of Temple Run.
Sounds horrible.
What's that?
Sounds absolutely depressing.
I probably got it wrong. I actually was let off the hook. I didn't have to go with my stepdaughter for that one. But it's an adventure movie for kids, and they took Temple Run, which is a very popular iPhone game, and they did one based on the environments in the movie, similar to what they did with Rio with Angry Birds. And that has some potential, although there is that question of how, we don't know yet how much that actually does for the brand. But at least they're legitimate games and not sort of these, crappy little knockoff games that we slap a logo on. But I mean, there are some interesting things that are happening in that space, I think.
Right. So we're running short on time here. We haven't gotten through all the topics I know we wanted to. So just looking forward over the next 6 to 12 months, how do you see things evolving? How do you see creative becoming more on the forefront of mobile campaigns?
I just want to throw in a comment about measurement, just because as a media guy here, and I know one of the things that people ask a lot is, what is success with a mobile campaign? And you look at the stuff and you go, okay, is it time spent? Is it apps downloaded? These sort of things. When your client asks you, what is success for my mobile campaign? This is the moment, like the left, right. This is the, what do you call that? Crossroads, fork in the road, both, right? This is the fork in the road. And this is the fork that we approached maybe 12 years ago in digital, when our client said, so what is success with my digital campaign? And the way that we answered it then was, oh, it's clicks, it's click-through rate, it's interactions, it's mouse over rate. It's all these words you've never heard of before that mean nothing to your business. And we're still suffering from that today. So I urge, beg, plead, when your client asks you, what defines success with this mobile campaign, do not use a word that only has existed since mobile phones have existed. Use words that are marketing words. Use words that are business words. Say, this will be a success when we sell more of our product. This will be a success when more people have our intent to purchase. Or this will be a success when more people are aware of the benefits of our product. And then figure out some way to get there. But don't, please, talk about interaction rates when they ask you this. That's my last thought on this. Thank you.
I'll make my quick play for integration, because that's what, as I say, is near and dear to my heart. And what I look forward to in the coming years is mobile completely woven into what we do on other channels. Because just as we're moving forward on trying to find metrics and data that matter in mobile, and where do we attribute success, things going on in the television business with how we're going to use set-top box data so that we know what people are watching at home, even as they're doing what they're doing on their tablet, even as they're showing what they're doing on the web. It's all coming together. It's scary if you're a consumer. It's delicious if you're me. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays in the total arena.
And I'm with Steve on the games and app sides of things. I think that's going to be the place where brands really start to stretch, and I think we're seeing success with that already on the internet and the web in general. And I think that would be one of the key places to go. And then I think the other one that's going to come up, and I've heard we spend a lot of time at MDC and ad tech looking at a bunch of companies, and there is this growing meme of, is it possible for us to serve fewer ads with greater relevance and be able to prove to marketers that that's actually going to work? While embedding them in the apps that are typically shipping with the operating system rather than trying to put something in it. And so I think we're going to see more attempts to do that, whether or not they'll succeed, and if we have the metrics to figure that out, I don't know.
I guess to me the thing I'm most excited about is the possibilities of marrying, I always thought of the web as a sort of virtual world. And what for me mobile does is provide the opportunity for that to sort of marry with the real world. And I think you get a tension and an excitement when you start to take digital materials and sort of actually associate them with geography, with place. So that's something that I'm real excited to see happen. To me, as a user, it's frustrating that my Maps app is separate right now from how I might get marketing messages. I feel like as I walk past McDonald's, I should get a thing saying, hey, get a free hamburger or whatever those things. If advertisers could speak to me in context of where I am in the world.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, back here. All right. I'm coming. Making my way. Would you please tell us your name and who you're with?
Hi, I'm Rosalie from Toys R Us, and I was just wondering from a creative perspective, what the biggest challenge that you have found in keeping relevancy while maintaining across the different consistencies between the different screen aspects, between mobile versus handset versus tablet versus desktop.
Okay, so the tough thing is that like our clients, we're doing it wrong. That we're still starting with the highest bandwidth execution and trying to figure out how we do it in the tiny space. That's changing. It's been sort of much more of the process to start with the small idea and build upwards. But the clients still want to buy the most snazzy and exciting thing first. That's how they're going to grab onto the idea. So for me, like that produces an equal level of challenge, whether you're going to a tablet or whether you're going to a phone or whatever the experience in terms of repackaging that same piece of content, rather than starting from the bottom up and saying what will work great here, and then you know for sure that it's going to work really nicely on the desktop. I would say, just to sort of add a little extra, for me the biggest problem with maintaining that sort of consistency is actually that I'm not sure that our organizations and our clients are running at the same speed as the marketplace is. So what we've seen in a lot of the things that we're doing, that they're actually often case live games that we're actually playing with our consumers, things going backwards and forwards between us, that we're actually not able to respond fast enough to a change in dynamic of a game or a promotion that's actually occurring at that time. And that with all the layers of approval that have to go behind something, it's actually very hard to be as swift and as quick in the marketplace as consumers would expect you to be. So I actually feel like that's a bigger challenge right now than the sort of resizing challenge. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, but Rosalie, I mean, the dirty little secret is that most of this mobile production is not happening at your creative agency. It's happening in Guatemala or Czech Republic or some other outsourced place. So in that kind of scenario, because it just doesn't make the agency any money. So in that scenario, what the creatives have to do is just make something lowest common denominator, because they're not going to be able to get into it and really work on something great solution and customize it, because they just have to ship it somewhere else to get it done, you know, on pennies to the dollar, and that's the product you get.
All right. Any other questions? Going once, twice. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Panel.
All right. Pleasure.